let's go back into Civil War as a bit of a segue. There was a person who showed up in Civil War that changed the whole weight of not just that film and Marvel, but comic book movies in general. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I know you agree, it made a lot of people, and in particular, people of color, stand up for a second and move up to the screen like, wait a minute, what is this? And it was when a young man named Chadwick Boseman stepped on the screen for the first time and would soon become the Black Panther. This was something that when we saw the commercial for Civil War and saw him in just that second, it was great to see Spider-Man, and not knowing that Spider-Man was going to be in it until they actually started to show, the final trailers and everything. But when we knew that Black Panther was going to be represented, and when we knew that it was going to be Chadwick Boseman portraying him, it was something that we all just, it was like my heart was racing. I couldn't get in the theater and watch it fast enough. And with this next part of this discussion, this conversation, to be honest with you, last night I was laying in bed just relaxing, and I decided to jump on YouTube for a little while. And as I went in, I saw a headline for someone's video, and it said something to the effect of rest in peace, Chad. And I think that it stopped because it was just a little part of that person's the video title, and so I had to click on it to see what the rest was. But instead of clicking it, because I almost didn't want it to be true, I went straight to Google, because that's what I've learned from Facebook and from everywhere else. When it's a story that just seems too whatever, it's like I need to go to the source and see if it's real or not. And when I went to Google and typed in Chadwick Boseman, that's all I had to type, and it said, dead at 43 years young from colon cancer. And before we go into this, I'd like to just take a moment to take a brief moment of silence for Chadwick Boseman. Okay, Kev, how was it on your end, or what did you feel when you first heard of this bit of tragedy yesterday or last night?
I had the same reaction that you did. Initially, like, this can't be right. I was thinking this can't be right. I had not heard that he had been dealing with colon cancer for 4 years.
Right.
I heard from some other people that recently he looked like he had lost some weight, looked a little bit ill, but I didn't really pay it any mind. So I didn't believe it at first. So I did the same thing. I hopped on Google, and it was all over the place. It's very, very hard to believe. I mean, 2020 has been a hard year. And this is just something else hard.
It's incredible.
It was hard to take. Because I first found out about Chadwick Boseman. I saw a television series called Persons Unknown, and it was like an ensemble cast, about 10 people. And in that show, just a second, I'm going to look up when it started, but it was this show. This show, Persons Unknown, is several years old. It first aired in 2010.
Wow.
So I saw it at the time that I watched it, which was, I think maybe it was late, like maybe 5 years ago. But as I said, an ensemble cast, about 10 different characters, had all been kidnapped and placed against their will into this fake town. And Chadwick was one of the people who all had gotten amnesia, forgotten where they had come from, didn't know how they had ended up in this place. And then they end up all realizing something's not right here, and they're trying to get out. So that's the first thing that I saw him in, 2010 television show.
Wow.
And he has had in a relatively short amount of time lots and lots of good films that most of them I still need to see.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so the films that introduced me to him, the films are the same ones that you mentioned, the Marvel ones. But
Okay.
there are several others on the list that I have to go see. But what I have seen has been excellent. So everything has been in, especially Black Panther, and even though my feeling about Black Panther is there was so much good in Black Panther
Right.
that it wasn't just Chadwick.
Yes.
But there was so much good. I mean, what he did only added to what I think was the excellence of that film.
Right.
So I was very sorry to hear that we won't be getting any more of that.
Yeah.
And you always think about when someone dies as young as he did.
Yeah.
What could have been. So that was really hard. It was hard to believe. Really hard. And then also he was involved in a couple things that were ongoing.
Okay.
So what does it mean for the next Black Panther?
That's true.
The sequel. What does it mean? Since
that's true.
Kilgrave was supposed to be in there in some kind of way, whether it was a look at the past or an origin story. How's that going to happen? How's that going to be carried out? Who knows? Because I don't think anyone's going to be able to measure up to him at all.
Yeah.
But that's not, I guess that's not for me to solve. But it's just again, it's been a hard year. It's really hard to take the news. It's an incalculable loss. Really sorry for the family, for his colleagues, his co-workers.
Yes, and just finding out that he had been married. I think that he had kept it quiet, just like he kept what he was going through quiet. And so we were surprised to hear that he had a wife and a family, and that they were at his bedside and everything. And so that's incredible. I think the first time that I ever heard about him was I heard of the Jackie Robinson movie 42, but I didn't see it first. I think the first thing that I saw was all the hype about Get On Up. And I knew if they were going to have to do a James Brown movie, they were going to have to do it right. So I went to the theater by myself and sat in there. And by the end of it, I knew two things. The first thing was his talent was immeasurable. And the second thing was, unfortunately, he was in a movie where he was the best part of it. And the way that it was written and the way that it was structured wasn't in my best liking. And I think a lot of people felt that way too. But that added more to the fact of him being a shining star in a story like that. Then I finally had a chance to see, and not only that, to purchase 42 on Blu-ray. And just like with Get On Up, you were whisked back into that time period where Jackie Robinson became who he was chosen to be. And his talent, not only Jackie Robinson's talent, but Chadwick's talent just hopped off of the screen. And it was just something that, I mean, I've said it several times overnight today. I'm just speechless about how he conducted himself, the way that he walked, the way that he stood, the way that he spoke, the way that he was able to take different characters from different periods and make them his own. It was my birthday, and my wife and I decided to go to see Marshall when that came out. And I didn't care if it was going to be okay or good or bad. I just knew Chadwick was in it, and I wanted to see it. And I couldn't believe, first and foremost, when he spoke, that he sounded like someone who would have lived back in that period. It was jaw-dropping. And then I've seen different movies like that with the court drama and all of that, but the way that he conducted himself and carried that portion, carried that storyline, made me, after I was done watching it, go home and find out more about the real, Thurgood Marshall. I think Message from the King was one that I also saw, and I saw that on Netflix, and that was good. Also, I believe that he was a character named Jacob King from Cape Town, and his sister had been killed, and so he had to come into town and find out what happened, and kind of change the tides on the way things, went from there on or whatever. And so, last but not least, recently I'd seen 21 Bridges. And I found out, and I think I told you about it when it was coming out, that the directors who had done the last of the Marvel movies, the Russo brothers, were going to be, I believe, either producing it or directing it. And once again, I'd seen movies before where a detective has to figure out what happened with a murder and everything, and it's been done many times over. But the way that he carried that role was something that was just so unique. He played Andre Davis, and he was a NYPD detective. And to make a long story short, by the time that I left that theater, I knew that I had to have that movie in my collection. But like you said before, I think that we all owe gratitude to what he did on the screen in the film Black Panther. How was it for you the first time that you actually watched it, in its entirety and just had a chance to reflect on what you had just seen?
I felt the film was perfect. I've enjoyed most Marvel movies, and it's interesting that this was a Marvel movie, but it was different somehow.
Yes.
I mean, definitely the focus on Black people.
Yes.
I mean, Chadwick has mentioned it himself. This isn't something you see very often. So that was refreshing. It's almost like seeing things I didn't know I was waiting for.
Right. I like the way you put that.
Where a story focused on Black people.
Yes.
And it was good. It was well done. I loved the interplay between him and Michael B. Jordan.
Definitely.
I kind of feel that Michael B. Jordan was, to me, it's almost like he was the star of the film. Just in that he brought so much to it.
Definitely.
But the way that he and Chadwick played off of each other, everything was really, really great. So I enjoyed that. I saw it several times. We saw it at not the last family. It might have been our last family reunion.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we actually saw this movie. Yeah. Our family showed this movie at our family reunion, where we had the men together, all bonded, and we had the women bonded and watching what they wanted to watch and doing what they wanted to do. But we felt that we had to see that film because of its impact, not just with the world and how it was taking everything by storm, but by the different. First of all, it was the fact that on a movie, we didn't have to be, as Black people, we didn't have to be pimps and hoes. We didn't have to be drug dealers. We didn't have to be slaves. Everyone was regal and carried themselves with a measure of dignity and respect. Those that didn't have the same morals or didn't come from the same cloth as the others still gave you an impression of why they felt the way they did. So like you said with Michael B. Jordan, you had people rooting for him, even though he was the bad guy, so to speak. And it's never been done before that the whole world is watching and speaking and talking about a film that is us, and speaking about Africa and speaking about our heritage and speaking about culture. And although it's Wakanda, Wakanda in a lot of different ways is right here and right now. Wakanda is walking in you and I and the people that look like us, the people that reflect what we've gone through and what we are still going through. And so I really appreciated sitting down and watching that with you and with our uncles and with our cousins and, you know, young cousins and older. And it was just a feeling that swept through that home of us all being bonded, not only by who we are and where we live and us being in the same family and our blood, but by something higher and something that was finally being appreciated by millions and millions of people. This film has earned, what, billions of dollars, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, and kind of one more thing, what you were saying, a lot of people had said at different times that, you know, they loved Black Panther in this, and they loved him, especially in Civil War and in Infinity War and everything. But in this, I believe that Chadwick was smart enough to allow his castmates the chance to shine in his own film. And it's like, you have to really tip your hat to a person that knows how to command the center of attention and at the same time allow it to be shared by so many other people. Because that gave birth to Shuri, to his sister, to Michael B. Jordan. Claw had his part in it and everything, but everybody had a chance to do their thing. And like you said, I wonder what's going to go down with the next one. I think it was supposed to be 2 years from now or something. But even before we get to that, I guess it's time to just kind of appreciate what he has done and what he has put in Hollywood. Hey, I got my copy right here. And I think, without exaggerating, I think I've seen this movie probably about 20 or 25 times. And knowing me, I'm probably gonna put it on sometime tonight and just sit back and just get my popcorn and also just kind of reflect and just appreciate who that young man was, you know?
Yes.
And who he is. And so I definitely need to check out that show that you were saying. I'm going to try to look that up. And I think he was supposed to be in a movie that I think is going to be released soon or whatever, but I forgot to mention The Five Bloods. And in that, he was Storm and Norm, and that's on Netflix now. And the brother actually had the chance to work with Spike Lee. And the way that he played that role, you know, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but just real quick, it was a group of men who had fought in the war, Black men, and whose other comrade had become a fallen comrade back then. They were going back to try to find his body to bring him back home. And also something that they'd left back in the day that they were going back to try to see if they can unearth. And in doing so, it also brought back the haunting past and showed you the difference from who the men were today and who they were back then. And I hope that they at least give it an Oscar or some nominations or whatever they can, but what Chadwick did, even in the time that he was on screen, and that was something that was just incredible. So definitely, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out on Netflix. That's really a good one. Really a good one. But yeah, it's just like you said, 2020 has been it's been dealing a real crazy blow. But I believe that more and more we're going to start to find out what type of man he really was. You know, when you hear the stories of people who knew him, who worked with him, people in his family, people who were friends of his, people who he met in Hollywood, and so forth and so on. And people even now are starting to talk about things that we didn't even know and things that we're just now discovering. And so I know that for some time to come, and I'm sure forever, he's going to be a special part of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is with this that we've appreciated this chance to speak about our dear brother and to also talk about the shape of Marvel and DC. And I know that there will be some wonderful things to come, and I'm sure that we're all for it. So until that time, and until we can say that we saw that, I'm Javon Holloman.
I'm Kevin Battle.
And thank you all for watching. Please be sure and click that like if you love what we did and what we do. And if you feel the way that we felt, hit that subscribe and drop a comment if you want to. But we will be back soon with more content, more episodes. And we're both excited and looking forward to it.